The Gemara in Pesachim Daf Lamed sagt the Gemara, Ein loshen es a isa b'chalav. One is not allowed to make a dough that's milchix, which means you're not allowed to pour milk into a dough, make a dairy bread. Ein loshen es a isa b'chalav. The imlosh, besides that you're not allowed to make such a type of bread, the imlosh, if you make such a bread and you baked it, kol hapas kul asura, it's aser. You're not allowed to do it, and if you do it, it's aser to eat. What are you not allowed to do? You're not allowed to make a regular bread, a bagel, a challah. You're not allowed to make it milchix. Or huadin farkert, you're not allowed to make it fleishix, either put in milk or either put in some type of fat that'll make it fleishix. And the Gemara says we put a hergel avera because we're afraid that a person will make this bread milchix. We're afraid that you're gonna in 3 days from now you're gonna forget that it's milchix and you're gonna use this bread for chicken. You'll make a schnitzel sandwich out of it. So maybe it's aser to make a bread, a dairy bread, or for carrot, a fleishig bread, because you might use it with the opposite and basa v'chalav. And that's Gapask in the Shulchan Aruch. We're learning now Siman Sadik Zayin Ein Loshen Isa b'chalav. You're not allowed to make a dough out of with it has in it milk. Shem Yavi L'Oichel and Basar. You're not allowed to make it from losh. It's aser. Huadin, it's not only bread, but huadin, pasababa kissin, and also in general, cakes and muffins, uchedoima, are also berekis, also go into this din that you're not allowed to make it milchix, or you're not allowed to make it fleishix. There is, however, two ikir heterim in the Rishonim, and it's based off a Gemara. The Gemara weiter in Pesachim Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis. The Gemara brings that bread was made milchix, and the Gemara says you're not allowed to make milchig a bread. So the Gemara says one teretz, and the Gemara says Iba Yasema, it was taka milchig a bread, but this heter of this that they made a milchig a bread, zok the Gemara ka the Amar Avinu ke'en tura. They made the bread ke'en tura. And therefore, you're allowed to make milchig bread. Where is the case? Where is it of making milchig bread that it's mutter? So there's a machlokes. We show you them how to understand this Gemara. Rashi learns Lashon Rashi ke'en tura ma'at, which means when are you not allowed to make bread milchigs? When it's a large quantity, when it's a lot. But if you make a little bit, you're allowed. Says Rashi, ma'at ke'en shor mutter. Then you're allowed to make it milchix. The achalei miyad. Since it's a little bit, the achalei miyad, and you're not going to leave it over, and if you don't leave it over, memela, you're not going to come to mix up and eat this milchig bread with fleishix. Which means, even though you're not allowed to make milchig bread because you're going to come to eat it with fleishix, says Rashi, if you only make a little bit, and a little bit means that you eat it, and you eat it right away, then it's mutter. Which would mean that one is not allowed to make a little bit and put it into the freezer for next week because you don't have the heter. The whole heter of a little bit is achalei miyad. You eat it right away, so you're not going to forget. You're not going to forget that it's milchix and go and eat it with fleishix. What's miyad, right away, and what's ma'at? Miyad, right away, within the next 20 minutes, and ma'at, how little? Which really, ma'at will go into what miyad is. Means if within 20 minutes, and then just as much as to eat for 20 minutes. The Aruch HaShulchan says that miyad means 24 hours. 24 hours. And he brings a raya from the Ramah. The Ramah says that you're allowed to make milchig bread for Shavuos or fleishig bread for Shabbos. And he says because the achalei miyad, because you eat it, you're making it for Shabbos, and you're eating now the fleishig bread over Shabbos. Now, achalei miyad, these 3 sudas over Shabbos, this Friday night, Shabbos day, and Shalosh Sudas, it's me'es leis. So the teretz is me'es leis, so 24 hours if you're going to eat it miyad, which means not just in the next 20 minutes, the next hour, the next suda. If you eat it within a day, it's okay. So this heter of Rashi, which to eat, when you make a little bit to eat a miyad, it's enough, as you're going to eat it within 24 hours. So obviously ma'at doesn't mean one roll for the next meal. It means enough that you'll finish up the bread within 24 hours. It's also brought in the Poskim. This is also in the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says that it's not only for you yourself. If you have a bigger family, so you can make more also. Ma'at means that it's going to be finished within that time. If a person has guests, you can make even more. And it's a Purim Suda and you have a lot of people, you can make even more. I looked around to see about a bris, because it's really miyad, but could be a bris, could be a shaila, because people take it home. That's also technically miyad, it's la'isay suda, also l'chayra you should be allowed. The Vayla, we didn't say anything about nikah. We're just talking about eating it right away. So that's the heter. You have to eat it right away. So if somebody takes it home, if he eats it, he takes it home from breakfast, he eats it for lunch, that's still called right away. And that's usually the derech. You bring home a bagel from a bris, you eat it by lunch or by supper, so it's within 24 hours. But if you're going to keep it for 2-3 days, you don't have the heter of miyad.
Isn't this in making it? Not this in what's the? This is to make it. It's to make the bread. Once I had the bread and I had in mind to eat it straight away, and then something else came up, and now I have something else food going on. So it's not. So then it was. I made it from the yard. Now what should I do with this bread? I have to eat it now straight away and throw it out. Like, it's already. It's already.
So, Akiva, you're asking like this. You're asking. Chlor, when you make it, you have to make it adas that you're going to make it now for Shabbos. You want to know what's the halacha if these left over afterwards, is it still mutter?
Yeah.
It's a good shaila. I don't know. It's a good shaila. But the aside of the heter of miyad is when you make it, you have to make it that it's going to be eaten for that 24 hours. And you have to eat it within the 24 hours. If these leftovers, the pashas, it should be aser because the whole thing is you're going to forget. So up until 24 hours you're still safe. But you said you made it beheter. It's a good shaila. We're gonna touch about it in a minute. If you could change it later, but not in your case. We'll see if it's relevant.
If you make this, you have to throw it out.
Very good. We're going to get to that in a minute. You're very good. We're going to get to that in a minute. If you make it be'isr, you have to throw it out. The Gemara says, in Gemara state, that you're not allowed to do it, and if you do it, it's aser. But what happens if you did it, Taka? Do you have to throw it out? We'll get to that in a minute. Let's first see that study heter. We want to do it right. But then we'll go, Taka, if you did it wrong, you did it be'isr, what happens? Talking about the 24 hours, the poskim speak about a 2-day Yom Tif, which is really more. They say you should be machmer. But to sum it up, the first heter is Rashi. Rashi's heter is a heter that if you eat it right away, a small quantity, it's mutter. The Rambam says a different heter. The Rambam says, he learns the Gemara, Ka'en Tura means that you make it a shape. You make it a shape, a different shape than the regular bread. If you make it a different shape, then it's mutter. Read the Lashon Rambam. The Rambam says, Shina b'tzuris apas, achati nikeres. You changed the way the bread looks. And now it's a nicker. When you see the bread, it looks strange. That's not how regularly bread is made. It's made in a triangle. It's made differently. B'chahai gavna, then it's mutter. Haresa mutter. So the Rambam's heter of making a hecker, like Rabbi Yoin, what you were mentioning before, making a hecker in the bread, that heter is a heter even in large quantities. You can make a lot, you can put it in the freezer. As long as it's a nicker in the bread, that it's not your regular type, you can tell in the bread, and the bread, obviously, you can see, you're right, it's taka milchiks. It's important to know and to mention and to understand that you can make the bread look different from today till tomorrow, but the people that take it also have to know. Which means you can make the bread look different. But if you're selling it in a store, and they never knew that it's milching a bread, so that's not going to help anything. But if going on a case that you know that it's milching a bread, you made it for yourself. The Lashon Grad in the Pisei Tshuva is that it only works for yourself, because you know. But for the people that know that it's milchiks, the hecker would be is you'll remember, even if you eat it in a week, you took it out of the freezer, you eat it in a week, it's still mutter, because Lamaisa, it'll remind you that it's milchiks. That's Taka de Noyig, the Eidach Redis, the Badatz in Yerushalayim. In the Berekis, those potato knishas, the Berekis, these parav and these milchiks. So their policy, you look into their guide and they write it clearly, their policy is for the milcha gabarekas, it's a triangle. How could they make a hecker? The OU uses this hecker in other cases also. They sell frozen pizza dough, which the pizza dough itself is milchiks. And they write that they could do it because it's taka hecker, it's taka the shape of pizza dough, and it's taka a good hecker because people know, they say for garlic knots also, even if it's dairy, these milchiks, it's OUD, it's dairy inside, because people know it's a type of item that it's in a pizza shop, it's milchik, so maybe it's a good hecker. There's many more cases to discuss and to look into, but we can't get it into this short time. But this is the general idea of having a hecker in the bread, and maybe you can make milchig bread.
But from the OU, they're saying that just because pizza is milchig, so everything is milchig. They make it in a certain shape, the OU? The pizza dough.
The pizza dough, the way I saw that, I didn't see the item in the store, but the way how they write, it's actually it's a shape of a pizza dough. I'm not sure if it's triangle or if it's round like a pizza. You're right, it could be dough that you just buy, that it's just dough and you roll it out. So that, l'chayr, would be a little bit more problematic, unless it's also because it's pizza dough, you make it for pizza, and pizza's milchiks. That's clearly, we have two heterim over here, either a small quantity or a shape. But that's for sure, we'll get to other heterim, but that's for sure if you have milchiks on it, you have a cheese Danish and these cheese on top, or if you have a slice of pizza, there's no problem to make the dough also milchiks, because that's niralai, and no one's going to make a mistake and take that cheese Danish and that pizza and have it together with a schnitzel sandwich. That's clearly it's milchiks. We're talking about a regular bread, and you might mistake and eat this bread with fleishiks.
Some places they put that, like a little piece of paper, they bake it into the...
Yeah, that's very clear. It's taka right. Shlomo Yosef saying that places put in a tag, and the grada taka and the Eida Chreidis over there, they have like a blue, they're very makap, put in chalavi. And the reason taka is because you can have a hecker, I think their cheese Danishes are also, I think, triangle, but it's very nice, triangle, but how does a person know that the triangle is being meramis, that it's milchiks? We're going to get to more tziyurim soon also, that even if there's a different shape, not always is it muchrach a hecker, maybe you can't rely on it.
Dorm sells chocolate cheese sandwiches that's put on at the dairy. Stick on it, like a...
And where is the cheese? Inside, it's just... I'll tell you like this, even inside kubi is not a problem, as opposed to if the cheese is the bread. Sometimes you have like a rogala, that's a plain rogala, or a Danish. There's nothing inside, but it's these dairy because they made the dough dairy. That's what we're talking about. Even inside, it seems not so complicated, as opposed to if the bread itself, or the item that we're talking about is milchik spat smusai.
You don't see it until you bite into it, then it's a little too late. I happened to do it, I didn't know it was a Danish cheese inside, I had no idea. It looked like it was a regular thing, innocent item. Man. I'll tell you which still afterwards. A confectionery Danish with cheese.
But what happened? You ate it after, you didn't eat it with the fleishiks, but you ate it afterwards, within the 6 hours. Yeah. So we have so far a machlokes what the heter is, and this machlokes is, we paskin like both, which means you can rely on either heter, either or of the heterim, whether if you have a small quantity or if you make a shape, either one is fine. It's like that in Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says, "V'im hoya davar mu'et kedei achilu basachas." If it's a little bit, oy sheshina tzuras apas. One or either if it's only a little bit, or you shinit tzuras apas, you made a change. Either one is fine. Now it's interesting to note the Ramah seemingly would be mashma. You need both. Because the Ramah, in the case of Shavuos or Shabbos, he says you're allowed to make Shavuos milchiga bread, or Shabbos you're allowed to make fleishiga bread. The Ramah says, over there, you know why you're allowed to do it, says the Ramah, Kol zeh mechshav kadavar mu'et, it's only a little bit for Shavuos, for Shabbos, Gam kitzurasa meshana, it looks different, would seem you would need both, but Lamaisa, the Aruch HaShulchan spells it out clearly, it's oiha, which means either you make a small quantity, or if it's not a small quantity, if it's a different surah, it's fine. Now, let's go into what Elia asked before. let's say you didn't do these two at Tehrim, which means you didn't make a small quantity, or when you made it, you didn't make it a different shape, and you made it be'isser. Is there an eitzah later to cut it up into pieces and give it out to people so now it becomes a small quantity, or to cut it up into shapes that it looks different? Could you fix it later? You made it l'tchatchila, you made it be'isser. Later on, you want to go and you want to fix it. Could you fix it later by cutting it up to pieces, small quantity, or could you fix it by making a shape? What does the Olam say?
Until when is it considered finished making it? Maybe that's still part of the...
No, we're talking about you made it, you baked it, it's out, it's done. It's done.
But it didn't serve it yet. Maybe that's not called...
Yeah.
What would be a chilek by serving it? Why would that make a difference?
It's certain things you can't eat, you know, look it up.
The Pischei Tshuva brings the Chavastas that these eitzes don't help, and the reason why it doesn't help is because when you bake it, and Chacham said you're not allowed to make a dough milchiks. When you bake it, it's like a nevela, it's treif. So it's too late already. It's treif and you can't fix it. You can't fix it. Pischei Tshuva, clearly you can't fix it. Not to make it into small pieces, which means to make it to davar mu'it, or not to make it a shape. It's too late. It's nas and avela. The Archolkim, the crazy or placey Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz brings from his grandfather, it says that you could. He says the eitzah, and there was a story once at Taka, they made a big large amount of bread that was milchiks, and his grandfather paskined that you should cut it up into pieces, give it out l'chol b'nei ha'ir, balabatim, he says, and b'meila, you could use the bread. So we have a machlokes. L'chayra, this the Olam will say, if you mask him l'chayra, you could explain the machlokes based on a yesod that we have had. We learned way back, in Bishul Akum, at the end of Siman Kuf Yud Gimel, we learned a machlokes. It's a machlokes Rishonim, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch. These are Isser D'Rabbanan of Bishul Akum. Someone's living, cleaning lady, go, you're not allowed to cook. And if you cook scrambled eggs, it's asur to eat it. What's about the pot? Do you have to kasher the pot? Does the pot become treif? It's a machlokes Rishonim, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, both shitas. If the pot becomes treif. I couldn't find inside, but I remember when we learned at this yesod that the machlokes is, I don't know if you remember the Olam when we learned it, the machlokes is what's the yesod or isser? Maybe by all the surah derabanan, it goes over to chalav akum also, is the isser chachamim, the aser on the person, you're not allowed to eat bishul akum, isser gavra, or they aser the scrambled egg that the living made, they aser the food, the isser chefza. L'nafke mina. If it's an isser chefza, so then the egg is treif. You're not allowed to eat it, and it treifens your pot up. But if it's isser gavra, there's no problem. The egg itself is not treif. The Chachamim said you're not allowed to eat an egg that the living made. Machlokes would be if it's the isser gavra or the isser chefza. If it's the isser on the person or it's the isser on the item, on the egg, on the food. And memela, just a second, there's a minute. And memela, that's the machlokes if the pot becomes treif. Memela, that will be the machlokes over here also. The Chachamim aser to make bread, dairy bread. What did the Chachamim aser? Did the Chachamim aser that you're not allowed to make dairy bread and you're not allowed to eat it? If that's the case, so they asered you and you attack over. But there's nothing wrong with the bread. So maybe you have these eitzes. You could cut up the bread, you can make shapes, it's okay. But if the Chachamim, the way they asered it, they said such bread is aser, then zok the Pischei Tshuva, it's nas and avela and it's aser. The nafke mina would also be a nafke mina lagabi if somebody did it and he made this milchig bread. Does the pot become treif? If it's an isser on the person, the pot doesn't become treif. But if it's an isser on the bread, you're not allowed to make dairy bread. You have to go and kasher it.
On Shabbos, if you cook on Shabbos, you're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. It's only an isser on the gavra. meaning the pot itself only also for the person, and not for someone else. I want to use your pot that you cook on Shabbos.
You're bringing up a very good point about Shabbos, and we'll speak about it afterwards, because I'll tell you, these are very lamaisa de geshayla if somebody cooks on Shabbos for a chayla.
Right.
They speak about it. I think there's even a steer over there.
There's a knas.
There's a nidin to speak about.
There's a knas.
Is it clearly only because of knas?
The Chasam said it's also.
No.
So we have over here a machlekes ladina. I want to speak about it afterwards, the Gabi Shabbos. So we have a machlekes ladina over here. We have two heterim, the heter of Rashi that you could have a small quantity. We have the heter of the Rambam that you can make milchig bread when you make shapes. What happens if you made milchig bread? You didn't do small quantity and you didn't make shapes. Could you do it later? So we have a machlokes ladina. What's lamaisa? Lamaisa is like this. These big list of achronim, the Ksav Sofer, the Binas Adam, Yad Yehuda, and others that say that it depends if you did it b'shoigig or b'mezid. If you did it b'mezid, you can't. I think based on the Yisaitak of Knas, but b'mezid you cannot. B'shoigig the Eitzah helps. And they're really miyasha with this a Gemara. The Gemara says that you're not allowed to make milchig bread, and the Gemara says, and if you did, lo yochal. So they ask, if you hold like the grandfather of Yonash and Ibishitz that it's mutter, you have these eitzes, what does the Gemara say? If you made it, it's aser to eat. Why doesn't the Gemara say, and if you made it, then cut it up? So it seems that you're not allowed to do it. So they say that is talking about b'mezid. B'mezid, it's aser. But b'shoigig you're allowed. So we have over here, if someone b'shoigig, which this happens, I've heard such shilas, it happens, you did it. B'shoigig, you have the eitzah taka, whether the eitzah is to make the shapes or to make it into smaller quantities, you split it up, give it to this person, to that person, and it's usable. Just to bring another oifen heter of making milchig bread, this is brought on the Piskei Tshuva, that if it's a type of bread or cracker or cookie that's sweet, that's his example, that you're not going to eat it with, let's say, fleishiks, or he says, I think you're not going to eat it with milchiks, because you don't eat cheese with something sweet, then you're allowed. The whole list of the chashas that you're going to make the bread, you're going to come to eat the bread, milchig bread, you're going to have a schnitzel sandwich, you'll put chicken steak inside. But if it's a type of bread that you will not put fleishiks on it, so then you can make milchiks. But what's not a heter, which this the crazy Abrasi brings, that in his town, the bakeries used to make milchig bread, and the bakeries used to say, when did the Gemara say you're not allowed to make milchig bread? When it's a one-time thing and people don't know about it. People don't know about it, so you have to be worried that you're going to come and use this bread and eat it with fleishiks. But all of our bakeries, we all sell milchig bread, so everybody knows about it. Since everybody knows about it, it's mutter. So Maisi says that's not a heter. So we have two heterim to make milchig bread, either if you make a small amount or you make a shape. We said a third heter in a way where you're not going to come to eat this bread together with fleishiks. Pizza we spoke out, it's not a heter, it's just that there's no chashash b'chlal because you see the dairy in front of your eyes. And what's not a heter is yedua lakoil. We use that heter for marasai, but over here yedua lakoil doesn't help because lamais, even though it's yedua lakoil, a person's going to forget. He's going to have this bread, it's sitting on his counter. 2 days later, he'll make a sandwich and mamela, it's aser. Atkan is what we're speaking about bread. That's the din of the Gemara, the din of the Shulchan Aruch. You're not allowed to make dairy bread. What's about any other items? Anything else besides bread and cake and cookies and crackers? Anything else? Is there a problem to have other items that milchiks are mixed in? The Taz, for an example, brings a case of a spice grinder, and he speaks about, are you allowed to have a spice grinder which became milchiks, fleishiks? The classical case that the poskim speak about is an interesting case. There was a year that the grapes, the wine was okay, but the look of the wine wasn't proper. We have over here Herzog Einikel. You could let us know if Taka that's the case that happens. But it wasn't a problem in the flavor of the wine. It just didn't look right. It was the color was off. So the eitzah was for the wine is to put in milk. That was the eitzah. You put milk into the wine. The Nachal Tzvi over here brings this from the Tzemach Tzedek. The earlier Tzemach Tzedek, the one that the Magen Avram brings. And the shaila is, if you're allowed to mix in wine, the mice of the wine is going to be milchiks. Are you allowed to do it? Again, you're putting in the wine because you want it to look. You want the wine to look good. Are you allowed to put in? Are you allowed to put milk in? So the Tzemach Tzedek says you're not allowed. You're not allowed to put. You're not allowed to put milk in. Just like you're not allowed to put milk into bread because you might come to eat the bread with fleishiks. So too, you're not allowed to put milk into the wine because you might come to drink the wine with meat. It's aser. Mi'idach. The Nachlas Tzvi argues, and the Nachlas Tzvi says that the Isser is the Isser only by bread. Only by bread. Why only by bread? Since Ki al lechem yichya ha'adam, bread is a staple that you eat all the time. I don't know so much in today's day, but it used to be that's what people ate. That's what you ate, bread. So Mamela, that's what a person ate. We're worried if you're going to make milchig bread, when it comes supper, you eat that for supper with that little bit of chicken. So you're eating milchig bread with chicken. Only by bread, and like we said, pasa, baba, kistin, mezoines, bread, cake, there is a problem to make it milchiks or fleishiks. However, other items, even wine, it's mutter. And his lashon is the lule de mistafina. You see, oimel lahalacha, that it's mutter to do this by wine to put milk inside.
Should there be a label on the bottle or not? No. If there's not, so then it doesn't either. If yes, there's a label on the bottle. Each bottle.
So, labeling is an interesting question you're bringing up, but at least in the olden days when people had wine, they had a barrel downstairs in the cellar, in the basement, and even if there was, you bring up a pitcher and you have to remember, and it stays from the morning to at night. So that's what he says there's no problem. By bread, you're pretty definite going to eat it with fleishiks. Wine, not for sure, mainly there's no problem.
There's no fashash, I'm going to eat the bread with the wine, then that bread with fleishik.
What does it have to be, the bread with the wine? You mean fleishik?
The bread with wine, we see the whole time in the Gemara, served to the yain.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but the bread, and then the bread becomes milchiks. That's really a discussion. Stamazay, what happens when you eat a suda, milchik, a suda, and then the bread becomes milchiks, right? The Ramon, Hilchis, by Shavuos over there, so what do you do afterwards? Good, you eat the bread with wine, and the wine's milchiks, the bread will become milchiks. So it's the same thing if you eat the bread with cheese, and the bread becomes milchiks, what do you do with it? Lamaisa, so we have a machlokes if you're allowed to do it, the machlokes ladina. It's important to note that there's a different nakuda to discuss, which is not dafka negayah to the wine. Could you put in a little bit of milk into your bread? A little bit of milk. Less, it'll be bottled b'shishim. You want to put it into your challah, makes it fluffy for whatever reason. Are you allowed to do it? General shaila, not really to do with before, but we'll get back to it. Are you allowed to put a little bit of milk? The bread, after you put in a mashu of milk, the bread's not milchiks, so it's bottled. Are you allowed to put in milk? So there's a din in Siman Tzadik Ches. Tzadik Tes, I'm sorry. Nilchas Taruve, Sifei, the Shulchan Aruch, Mavatal Isel Tchatchila. So is this called Mavatal Isel Tchatchila? The Tzemach Tzedek says that yes, it is. A regular case of Mavatal Isser is you pour milk into your cholent, a little bit of milk. You're not allowed to do it because Mavatal Isser Tchatchila. Not only you're not allowed to do it, and if you do it, it's aser. Here, you want to put a little bit of milk into your bread. There's no Isser, there's nothing wrong. What's going to happen now? There's still no problem. So the Tzemach Tzedek says you're not allowed to do it. It's still Mavatal Isser Tchatchila. The Cholkim, which is the Nachlat Tzvi, says you're allowed to do it because even after the milk goes into the bread, nothing happens to the bread. The bread's regular power of a bread. Issa would be as if you put in milk into a cholent, a fleishig cholent. And then he says that even if you're going to want to say by the wine, even if you're going to want to say by bread, which this is negated to the case we spoke about, by bread, he'll be moida that you're not allowed to, because bread, it's karov levadai, that you're going to eat it with meat. So Mele, it is like Mavatal Issa L'Tchatchila, but by the wine case, you're for sure allowed to. So we have a machlokes if you're allowed to put in milk into the bread, even though you're not allowed to make dairy bread, but could you put in milk less, and it'll be batal b'shishim. I saw in one of the newsletters from the OU, it could be changed by now, but the English muffins, which is OUD, it's milchex, and the shaila is if it's milchex, so what's the heter? You're not allowed to make dairy, it's not bread, even muffins, cake, you're not allowed. So originally, there used to be the heter because it was a different shape. But that's not a heter anymore because they make even the parava ones also that shape. So mainly you don't have the sibid. And to say the heter of Rashi, which we mentioned, the small quantity, you also don't have because you buy them, there are a bunch of them, there's no small quantity. But what they did rely is on the heter because it's batal b'shisha. Now even though we heard this over the years from many people, many mashkichim from the OU, that they do not rely on bittul, something, if there's any treifa ingredient, they do not rely on it, even if it's less than, it's batal b'shishim, because that's called emavatan isel l'tchatchila, even if a guy does it, it's aser. But over here, based on what we said, this is not called emavatan isel l'tchatchila, so mamela you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do it, and that's what they rely on.
What do right there?
Because very good shaila. Because Lamai said there's dairy inside. By law, they have to do it. And you want to know if you're milchiks, if you're allowed to eat it after.
I put my salami on.
I'm telling you, for law, it's dairy. You want to know for a shaila of.
Am I allowed to put my turkey sandwich on? Make a turkey sandwich of Thomas's English muffins.
Why would you not be allowed? Why not?
And a salami. Because there's a deer on it, that's why.
I'm telling you, they write it because there is a dairy product inside.
Did I not write that?
No, the law doesn't.
They have to write inside. Maybe the D is coming for the Allah. He asking a good child. Why did they have to write dairy if they're relying on bottle? It's bottle b'shishim. It could be havaite. It's a good child. We have to look into that. Why did they have to write dairy? Anyway, I'm sorry. Mamash, sorry. One more nekuda. I apologize. It's a few minutes over. I'm sorry. Just one more nekuda in the Eim of Atlan Isser. There's one more mokum to be mater. It's a Shulchan Aruch and Hilchas Yom Tov. The Magen Avram brings it, and it's the gay over here also. If you bevatel it, but not because you want the Isser. You're doing it because you want to make the product better. Let's say, for an example, if you're putting it in because by the bugs and the dvash, you cook up the dvash. But you're not being it's not because you want to get rid of the bugs. You want to cook up the oil, the honey to make the honey better. So there's a heter. That's also something to speak about. To look into, and also for the look. But just to sum up what we spoke about, we have to end. But just to sum up, the halach is you're not allowed to make dairy bread. Bread made out milchiks, it's aser. There are two ikrat herim if you make a small quantity, or if you make shapes, those cases are mutter. And then we saw that even though the tchatchila, if you did it, there's a machlokes if you could fix it. And then we saw there's a big shaila if you're allowed to go and put in less than the shear and it'll become bottle, and the mela won't be dairy bread.